Hello here, and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Thank you for joining us here as we make our way through the dog days of February. But spring football in sight, guys. We're about 3 weeks away from Nebraska opening up spring practice under Matt Rule. We learned this week, in fact, that they will start practice right away on Monday, March 20th, and they'll go on Tuesday that week, as well as Thursday and Saturday. So they're going to get 4 of their 15 practices in over the first week because they're not going to practice over the weekend of Easter on that Saturday. So they're going to take one of those Easter weekdays and use it right away and get things going. And, you know, we've had a really good productive offseason. You know, we've heard from now all the assistant coaches, all the strength coaches, all the coordinators. We heard from the final batch of assistant coaches here on Wednesday. Offensive line coach Donovan Raiola, strength coach Corey Campbell, and then linebackers coach Rob Dvorak. They met with the reporters here on Wednesday. Any big takeaways, particularly from Raiola? I mean, it was the first time, Sipple, that we've heard from Donovan Raiola since he had been retained. And, you know, it was just interesting to hear him now as the lone member of the previous staff now working for Matt Rule.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he was very productive. And if you just want to go right into the weeds, I would start with Ben Scott. I don't know what you guys thought. I just thought Ben Scott would be the center. And Donovan Raiola didn't really say, yeah, he'll be the center. They're going to look at him at other spots. They could use him at tackle. He started 11 games at tackle. At right tackle for Arizona State in 2021. I think he actually started 13 games at right tackle for Arizona State in 2021. Then he started at center all season in 2022, 11 games. So I suppose you could play him at tackle or probably guard for that matter. So yeah. What did you think of that, Sean?
What that makes me think is the thought of right tackle. Like if they don't think Benhart is a viable right tackle or Corcoran. We're assuming Prohaska's back. Teddy Prohaska coming off the shoulder injury.
He won't be there in the spring though. But he's not playing in the spring.
Ben Scott, right tackle, Ethan Piper, center, or Corcoran center. I think it's all in the pursuit of giving you the combination of the best 5, but I still go back to my conversation with Ben Scott in December when he came here, and he seemed pretty adamant that it was to play center.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, Donovan Raiola didn't seem adamant about Ben Scott playing center today.
Yeah, I took that as just, you know, Raiola being Raiola, where he's not going to crown anybody in February. And, you know, it's going to be one of those things where you leave the competition open. You got to make guys earn spots. And sure, they'll probably cross-train him to see what other combinations could work. And if he is a better fit at guard or tackle and they feel good about the center position with somebody else, then they might go that way. But one thing that he made abundantly clear was he takes center about as seriously as any position on that offensive line. He's a former center. He called it the special position of the offensive line, where you are the brains of the offensive line. You have to make the calls. You have to be a confident, natural leader to be able to make the calls on the line of scrimmage, sometimes in hostile environments. And so it takes a certain player that can be a center for Donovan Raiola and really anywhere. But that leads me to believe that when they went and handpicked Ben Scott and brought him in here with all the things that he was talking about from his side of it and just what we know about him, he seems like the natural fit. I'm sure they're leaving that door open, but yeah, I think it's a safe assumption at this point.
I don't know. I didn't get that. I wrote, just to respect you guys, it seemed he was very open to
their tackle play has been historically bad.
Right.
Yeah. And they return the same guys, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, Sean. I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying.
If you're historically bad, you got to make some changes.
Right. That was eye-opening to me.
Would you agree that the ideal plan is for him to be at center?
Like Walter Rouse.
That's what I thought all along.
Not coming here is the gift that continues to keep giving. that like probably changed a lot of the discussion. I mean,
probably
think about the 2-day period where they thought they had Walter Rouse to where they're at
2
now.
days. Yeah. That Saturday morning I thought it was Twilight Zone stuff. The Saturday morning when it came out that he was going to Oklahoma, it was like, oh, whoa. Yep. I mean, it was interesting writing the story because I was like, is this fiction? What am I doing here?
After he just gave full interviews about coming to Nebraska, like it wasn't like they were like full interviews.
It was bizarre. Anyway, the other takeaway, I was also struck by, wow, they're really welcoming back Nouredin Noili with open arms, clearly. And now, and by the way, he mentioned Nouredin as a possible tackle. That he could go out.
He might get some left tackle work with Teddy being out.
Yeah. I heard he's trimmed up quite a bit and looks good.
So yeah, that's a big one. And people tend to forget Noili because he was out all of last year. He failed a drug test. It was the NCAA ruled him ineligible. So my big takeaways with Dominic were basically player related, but also just
Donovan.
Donovan. Yeah. What did I say?
Dominic.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Dylan. Let's just say Dylan too.
You talked to a lot of Raiolas.
Donovan. And it was a no-brainer for him to come back, he said, and I don't know what kind of options he had. Now, Rule had other options. He interviewed several candidates, but so yeah, I thought Donovan was productive today.
Well, and going back to Nouili a little bit, I thought it was notable that he said he did not miss a meeting.
Yeah.
All last season while he was out.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And I'm sure part of that is like, if you want to be around, you better come to the meetings. But he did it, and followed that standard that Donovan always talks about when he talks about his O-line. So it seems like he's going to be hitting the ground running here when they get back to work in spring. I'll bet you he's chomping at the bit after a very disappointing end of last year.
You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Let's wrap up the discussion here on the assistant coaches. Rob Dvorak. A couple things jumped out that he said to me. Chief Borders and MJ Sherman, I believe, both in his room.
Sounded like it.
And, it's so hard to know how this 3-3-5 works. And then the other thing with Corey Campbell, the strength coach, I think it was big that he got here. And I asked him this about getting here on November 28th, because he kind of figured out a way to get a whole month with these guys before they came back in January. When you go back to Zach Duvall, when he came in with Frost, they didn't have a strength coach for like 50 days.
Ooh.
And then they literally had guys go to the hospital when they had their workouts.
Yeah. Darn near killed some guys.
Easy.
Well, like Tyjon Lindsey was in the hospital.
They were hospitalized.
Dylan Owen, a walk-on, I remember there were several guys, and I think we got like the Cliff Notes version. It was.
But we did get Frost. Did do a round of interviews about it. I would say he was pretty transparent about it.
Imagine if that would have happened in year 5, though, versus year 1.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
So with the Campbell thing, too, about your point about how important it was for them to get here, especially for him to get here, to get the process started with their strength and conditioning program as quickly as possible and maximize every day that they have. And what it started with was just getting to know guys, the relationships. Again, another coach hammering home the importance of relationships being the primary focus right out of the gates. And it started with getting to know guys and earning that trust to where, it's not just, hey, this is my program, go lift. It's, this is why I'm doing what we're doing. And this is my long-term plan. And the fact that it's a specialized program for each guy, like it's not just across the board, everyone on the team does this. It's they test and use all the sports science resources available, and each player has their own starting point, and they go day for day and kind of build off of that. They haven't even maxed out yet because it's too early. They're still trying to figure out where guys are with their conditioning and their training. So a really kind of interesting inside look into his philosophy and why it was so critical for he and Matt Rule to basically get that thing rolling as soon as they step foot off the plane in November.
Campbell was insightful. And think about it. Think about Corey Campbell. He said this. He gets to put his stamp on the weight room in that brand new facility. And he's doing it. He will do it. But that to me that would be very appealing to me as a strength coach. And he did say that is a recruiting advantage.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know what he would say to that question, because some people would say, new facilities, kids don't look at that as much. He just said, that's a big time recruiting advantage.
You're listening here to the Husker Online Show as we wrap up opening headlines. I want to hit on Nebraska basketball and baseball quickly, guys. First of all, Nebraska basketball, red hot. And Robin, you've been around and you've seen runs and streaks. Runs and streaks this time of the year obviously are rare, and Nebraska's got a chance. What are they in February right now? 3-1,
4-1
in February.
Come on, Sean.
They've got a chance to be 6-1 in the month of February. If I would have told you that
Robin, remember Robin though? He said the back end of the schedule.
If they could get to it.
Yeah.
And that was the key. And they almost didn't.
And it didn't look like they were going to during that stretch in January when they lost
6 of 7.
6 of 7, and we're getting blown out. I mean, there's some ugly losses there. So obviously it's kind of been a perfect storm of events where they shifted their identity to kind of more of an offensive approach, but they couldn't have done that without Keisei Tominaga. I mean, he is the one that has spearheaded everything. The ripple effect of his production over the last really 11 games, but especially the last 5, has been incredible. It's made life easier for Derek Walker. It's allowed Sam Griesel to have a little bit less pressure off him, and just kind of opened up everything to where Nebraska has a bona fide go-to scorer now, which they haven't had in a while, or at least not one at this level. So it's really been fascinating. And the fact that they were able to overcome a January where we were wondering if Fred Hoiberg was even going to be here next year. And now we're talking about, can they make the NCAA tournaments? Like what scenarios need to play out?
What is the scenario? Everybody asks that.
Yeah,
what is the scenario?
It's an uphill battle. They essentially need to
Get to
win
Saturday.
out. They need to win out, and then they need to win probably 3 in Chicago.
Or 2 for sure.
I mean,
2 would give them to 19.
Yeah.
I think this is going to get crazy. I do. Because I think they're going to win the last 3 regular
I know. I
season
heard you
games.
say that. And I don't know. Maybe it's just the beaten down Nebraska beat writer in me, but I'm not ready to jump there yet.
I'm not beaten down.
Here's what I want to see.
Why can't they?
Sip. Here's what I want to see. For the first time all season long, they are the hunted.
Yeah.
Again on Saturday.
That's true.
They are expected to beat a Minnesota team that's going to be running on fumes.
Yeah.
We can talk about this more in the basketball segment, but that is, if they can win that one and do it convincingly, all of a sudden I think that maybe there's a little bit more belief of them beating Michigan State, beating Iowa, and whoever they play in Chicago.
Yeah.
People are so jacked up though. I mean,
It's been a long time.
At those games, that game on Sunday, it was, I mean, like you
Best
left
crowd of
that
the season.
arena just like, yeah. I mean, everybody was just, I mean, it was unbelievable just how
that visceral reaction, Abby.
like even like my young kids, third grade.
Did they do what you just did?
Like when Keisei hit that shot in overtime, my third grade daughter, Kit, it's not played basketball before, but she gets what's going on. I mean, she was like, I've never seen her get so excited at anything. Really? And I was like, man, and you could see that around the whole arena, kids. Anyway, I mean, this team captivates you. Say the Sam Hoiberg story, the Keisei story, the Griesel story,
Derek.
And we kind of sit near Griesel's family, and just watching the emotion of his mom and dad. I mean, it's just man. I mean,
it's a likable team.
Any in-state guy out there, like you could be Sam Griesel, you could be a hero if you come here. And these guys all go all over the place. That's great.
Yeah.
Come to Nebraska, and this whole place would get behind you. It's unreal.
That's what's happening right now.
Well, and now they actually have tangible evidence of this is what happens. You know? And
it's the place is nuts.
Yep.
It's a hungry fan base. It's hungry for anything.
Starved fan base. Yeah. It's a starved fan base.
Right.
To have meaningful basketball in late February for the first time since probably 2019.
Yeah.
That says something.
There you go.
And then briefly, Nebraska baseball 0-3-1.
Yeah, flip side.
And I know it's early, but some alarming pitching numbers came out of San Diego this past weekend. When you just kind of look at the line score, Nebraska's pitchers gave up 20 walks, 10 hit by pitches, and 31 in a third inning. So they gave up 30 free passes and 31 in the third inning. Yikes.
I don't know what to say about that.
And
I know.
that has to get your attention right now. And now they have South Alabama. Then they're going to play like the next weekend. They're in Minneapolis. They're going to play Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. And it's indoors, by the way, not outdoors. They're playing inside the Vikings stadium there. This is man. I mean, it's early in the baseball season, but that was an alarming weekend.
I'd say so.
Get your attention.
It started off with the offense being very subpar. They were in the first 2 games, they were 3 for 19 with runners in scoring position. And Will either call that abysmal or atrocious. I don't. He called the pitching, the lack of control, either abysmal or atrocious. My point is, when the head coach is using the words abysmal and atrocious right out of the gate. First of all, if I'm the pitching coach, that concerns me. That my boss is using the word atrocious to describe what's going on with the walks. So Will's got a heavy hand in the offense, so that's on him too. Well, he's the manager. you don't want to overreact, but you don't want to underreact. There's a sweet spot.
Why are they playing under so much pressure? That's
why do you think there's? I don't know if there's pressure.
Well,
because of last year,
the walks and the hit by pitches, though, that's pressure. Like guys not getting it over the plate.
That's between the years.
Like
you think
mental,
when
like
pitchers can't put it over the plate. That's mental.
Why playing basically in empty ballparks in San Diego in week 1? Are you like
can't put it over the plate?
Like why can't you relax? Like that's I don't know that.
All right, I'm with you.
But here was a stunning stat from that. The last time they scored 16 runs in a game and didn't win was 1996 when they lost 17-16.
Man,
so I mean, you're talking about decades.
John Sanders
since the last time that happened.
Yeah, I was in my prime.
All right. Well,
no, I wasn't actually. That's past my prime. Even my God. I'm sorry.
No.
You're very much in your prime.
No.
Yeah.
As and speaking of your prime, I can tell we're going to talk about our road trip out to Ainsworth. We listened to that game 1 on the drive back on Highway 20 coming back on Friday night, but we're going to talk about our trip out to Ainsworth next. We spent a lot of time with Carter Nelson's father, Jake, and his coach, Jesse Owen. We're going to break all that down next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Before I get into some Carter Nelson discussion, this segment of the program brought to you by Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill, 30th Yankee Hill Road. Stopped in there actually Saturday night. Met Brian Munson. He was in town, obviously, for the in-state tour. Was out in Ainsworth with us. And we ran into Tim Carpenter, Matt Hoskinson, a group of former Husker players there that we were meeting up with. And we saw a bunch of current Husker players in there eating wings. Garrett Nelson had some promotional stuff from the commercials, and all the guys were kind of in there hanging out, enjoying some Tanner's wings, watching games. Place was packed. It was buzzing. Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill, 30th and Yankee Hill Road. Best wings in town, cold beer, burgers, sandwiches. Get in there and check it out. But let's talk about Carter Nelson. Sip, you and I trekked out there Friday morning, 4.5 hour drive. But it was relaxing. I enjoyed the drive. It was fun just to kind of get up there, get away. But we got our first chance to see this kid live and in action. And, you know, it was kind of surreal. We like walked in the school and there's this kid in the gym just by himself shooting baskets.
Yeah. And it was him. And I'll tell you what it was surreal. I'm glad you mentioned that part, Sean, because when you walked in, and, you know, I think we all have these images. If you say number one player in any state, I don't know about you, but I kind of want him to look a certain way, you know? And when we walked in, that's what you want it to look like. I mean, it looked like, you know, he's 6'4". I don't know. The program lists him as 6'5", their program.
He's 6'4", is it he'll tell you. You know, basketball program.
Anyway, 6'4", 215. Extreme. I mean, it's extreme athleticism, and you could see it. You walk in, you see this high school kid in Ainsworth just shooting hoops. You're like, yeah, that has to be him. If they have two like that, it'd be really weird. They don't, because hardly anybody would. It was a great trip. I mean, it was very informative. You know, we talked to his dad, who's the basketball coach, Jake Nelson. You know, we talked to come on, Sean, help me out.
Jesse Owen, the head football coach.
Yeah, the head football coach was great. Another of the track coaches, Wade Alberts, was great. And, you know, and I'll tell you what, Carter himself is really good to talk to. He's a very mature kid. And what they really drive home on this is if you're skeptical about the 8-man thing, if you're skeptical of, you know, small town guy being the number one player in the state, just look at his track numbers. And look specifically at the 7-foot high jump. Now that anybody who knows track knows now that's territory. When you get to 7 foot, that's the differentiator. And he's a 7-foot high jumper with all that size
and a 13.8 pole vaulter, which is maybe even more impressive because of how big he is.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'm saying the high jump's more impressive. But the pole vault, he's a very powerful.
I mean, they don't even
kid.
make poles big enough to handle him.
Right. They got to go find pole. They got to try to rent poles because he snaps them in half. Yeah, he's a, and you know, I don't get too wound up about guys who are able to dunk a basketball. That's pretty standard stuff. But the ease with which he does it is a little freaky.
Yeah, there's something telling with just the explosiveness that it takes.
Yeah,
to elevate.
He does it with ease. You know, he took a lob on a fast break, two-handed tomahawk. It was like, okay, wait a second,
And he didn't force the basketball game to come to him.
No, he doesn't do that.
It just came to him. Yeah. It wasn't like he was like, give me the ball, I'm going to shoot a bunch of threes and clear. I mean,
the sure sign of a great athlete is if it looks easy. That's a sure sign. And it looked really easy to him.
Brian brought this up, and he's almost like a modern day Tom Kropp.
Oh God, that's interesting.
And Tom Kropp,
a lot of people aren't going to know who you're talking about.
Well, Tom Kropp could have played pro.
He did. He played in the NBA for
multiple sports, not just so. He was an NBA basketball player. He could have been he could have played for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Kearney guy,
and then he was a high level track athlete.
Was he from Kearney?
No. He's not. He went to UNK. He's from Aurora.
Oh, from Aurora. Thank you.
My wife born in Grand Island. Went to high school in Aurora.
Okay.
He was UNK's coach for basketball, legend. I mean, he played legendary lunch basketball games where they would play full court one-on-one. Him and a guy. They would go back and forth one-on-one. But anyway, that's what you think of, just like a
Carter.
Yeah, Carter Nelson is like a modern day potential Tom Kropp kind of guy.
Yeah.
Potential. He's Tom Kropp is one of the 5 best athletes to ever come through the state.
Yeah, here's the deal. He's the number 1 player. He got an offer today. From Georgia.
Texas A&M this week.
Alabama coach Nick Saban called him. Now, it does mean something when the head coach calls you.
That's not an assistant coach.
No, Saban. Yeah, Saban called an offer. That means a lot. Now I think he's probably up to 24 or 25.
Over 25 now.
Over 25.
He got Ole Miss this week. He was at 22 when we were there, and he's
Power 5.
Yeah,
all Power
5. So he's like at 26 or 27 Power 5s, and there's only 65 Power 5.
Yeah,
programs.
Sean, I really appreciate that you wanted to go up there. It was definitely worth the trip to see him. I mean, it's a great story to follow now. And I don't know. Nebraska's got work to do. I mean, I just think. Well, and I think, Sean, you would say Jake Nelson and Carter play very close to the vest on when they start discussing options.
And I don't even know if anyone's advising him. They're just being really smart about it.
Yeah, they seem smart.
I think in their heart, they like Nebraska, but Nebraska may not be the best place for them. They don't know that yet. And
when you get Alabama, Georgia, Freeman, the Notre Dame coach, flew in. I mean, the head coach flew in to see him.
And then that story, Connor Riley, the Kansas State offensive line coach, who is an Omaha Creighton prep.
Story,
Tell that story, Sid.
Yeah, it was a great story. It was last spring. So it was last April 12th during the spring season. Carter Nelson was at the O'Neill Invitational. I think it was the O'Neill Invitational, and Carter won 4 golds that day. Or no, I'm wrong. I got to back up. It was just a practice in April. It was a track practice last April, and he was going through his various things, and he grabbed the pole and did a pole vault, and the Kansas State coach filmed it. One trip down the runway, he turned to Jesse Owen, the football coach, and said, "Hey, how's your runway out here at Ainsworth Airport? Is it long enough?" And Jesse's like, "Yeah." Why? He goes, "Because there's a lot of people coming. There's going to be a lot of people coming, and they're coming." I mean, they are. They're coming.
And he's at 20. I just did a count.
That was last April.
He's at 28 total offers. 27 are Power 5.
Okay. Iowa State was the first to offer.
And Nebraska, I believe, was the second.
Yeah. The reason I got mixed up on that is because he went to Iowa State last April 13th, the day after he won 4 gold medals at the O'Neill Invitational.
And he high jumped 7 foot there, right?
Yeah, I think,
which is a Class C state record.
Freak. Yeah. Well, it led the nation for a period last spring. That was the highest high jump in the nation last spring. Yeah, he's a freak.
That's like when I talk to young football players, I always tell them, like, go out for track, because if you put up measurable marks in track,
nobody can dispute it.
Like, you can't, it's undefeated.
Especially if you're at one of those smaller schools, you're not going to get the exposure.
If Carter Nelson, so invaluable. If he did not,
those numbers translate.
Yeah, like they do.
If he wasn't a track athlete, he wouldn't have these offers.
You don't think? Yeah, probably not.
How would you see him?
Yeah. Saban mentioned to him the 7-foot jump. Everybody knows that follows it at all. That 7 foot's like when you see 7 foot, you're like, whoa.
111 flat in the 100. He's a school record holder in the low 22s and the 200.
Right.
He throws a discus 175.
Yeah, he's amazing. So it was fun. It'll be interesting to watch this play out, and it's interesting from the standpoint of he could be catching passes from Dylan Raiola.
Yeah. So you touched on this earlier, Sip, about the stigma with 8-man players. It's a real thing. Because I remember not too long ago, I was out at Fremont Mills High School in Western Iowa watching Seth Malcolm, and he was playing an 8-man game out there, and he was by far the best athlete on the field, biggest, strongest, fastest guy, like no-brainer, best player. Comes to Nebraska, and he's still early, but we haven't heard a peep. Anything about him.
No.
So what makes you more confident that Carter Nelson, outside of just his athleticism, going to be able to handle that jump from 8-man Nebraska high school football up to Big Ten level football or SEC level football?
It's hard to say that, except what we're saying about
he just has the
track
physical intangibles.
Yeah. And he is a smart kid, but no, you don't know. And
you could say that with anybody.
It happens a lot, Rob, when these kids, okay, so he's bigger than everybody, faster than everybody. He plays mostly. Now, you never know exactly how a guy's going to be, even in basketball, when they start playing against guys who are just as fast, jump just as high, strong or stronger. So I've seen guys at Nebraska just go away. They just can't do it. They're so used to being the man, and then when they're not, it doesn't work. I've seen it many times. Guys just go away, and I can't say what's going to happen with Carter Nelson. I don't know. What's it going to look like when he's blocking somebody this as big as him? I don't know. We'll have to see on that.
Yeah, you're listening here to the Husker Online show as we put some final thoughts here. Yeah, and the timeline, he's going to go on trips. Okay. And that's what we learned. They're going to go on a West Coast swing and an East Coast swing. And I would imagine Georgia, Alabama, the Texas schools, like all of those are going to factor in. But they've got a lot of decisions to make.
He hasn't gotten any offers from the West Coast Pac-12 schools, but they expect those to come.
And that would be UCLA and USC and Oregon and Oregon and Washington. Yeah, you look at his offer list now.
Well, when we were talking to him last week, he hadn't gotten any offers from those schools.
No, there's no West Coast offers yet. You're right.
Yeah, they're waiting.
And
they're hearing from him.
He doesn't have Ohio State or Clemson. I mean, if you're talking like big boys. Those aren't on there yet.
Probably won't be too long.
And LSU is not on his list yet. So, he's pretty much got everybody at this point. Oklahoma's on his list, as you mentioned. Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa, Colorado. And Colorado's become a big offer now. Like the buzz around Deion Sanders and what they're doing. So, it's
going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I knew it was going to be big when we went up there. But we just kind of fell into it. Like we got timing of the trip when we went up to Ainsworth probably couldn't have been better.
No, it worked out perfectly. He got that Alabama offer on Thursday. We were there on Friday, and then I think you said that on last Thursday too. Georgia 4 assistant coaches followed him on Twitter. Right?
He had 113 unread messages in his inbox on Twitter.
Is that right?
On Friday.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're a reporter or somebody, you're probably not going to get Carter right now. He's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
His father and the coaches are, like
he seemed to handle it well.
He handled it well with us, but how do you at that age handle that many people wanting to contact you?
Yeah,
I know how we get when we're trying to manage a bunch of things. Imagine a kid.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he handles it better than I do. But anyway, it's exciting. I think if hopefully he just recognizes that this is a small moment in time, and it's exciting to have
6 months. It's probably going to be figured out.
Yeah. So it's a very short moment, and he should really have fun with it.
All right. When we come back, we're going to bring basketball talk into discussion here again, as Robin Washett will get us ready for the Saturday showdown against Minnesota. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, getting you ready now for Saturday's what should be a sold-out standing room environment, a coveted 2:30 old school Saturday tip-off. Nebraska basketball taking on Minnesota in Pinnacle Bank Arena, 2:30 on the BTN, Robin. This is a game that you watched in Minneapolis, where Nebraska won earlier in the year in overtime. I think timing is on the side of Nebraska. Minnesota playing their third game of the week, traveling again.
Third road game.
So what's What's the early metrics look like? Nebraska probably by 8 or 10 point favorites at this point?
At least. Right now, obviously no point spread out as of recording time, but looking at the Ken Pom projections, they got Nebraska as an 84% chance to win that game with a projected score of 70-59. So you're looking at a double-figure margin in a game that Nebraska, if they are legitimately a postseason team, you win this game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a bad Minnesota team that you already beat once. Granted, it took you overtime, but that was back on January 7th when you were going through your own issues, and you found a way to get it done. Now you catch them, like I said, playing their third road game in 6 days. They were
Minnesota.
Minnesota. They were at Illinois on Monday, at Maryland on Wednesday, and then in Lincoln on Saturday. And so they're going to be running on fumes. They're by far dead last in the Big Ten standings. To their credit, they're still playing hard. They gave Illinois a little bit of a fight, but the reality is that if Nebraska, all this talk about them being a NIT team or maybe even making a miracle run to the NCAA tournament, that doesn't happen if you don't win this game. So this is an interesting scene for me because this is the first time in a long time, maybe since the start of the new year, where Nebraska is expected to win, where they are the hunted. Before it was always, can they pull off an upset? Well, now you're coming in double figure favorites. How do they handle that? And are they capable of taking care of business when they're supposed to?
Yeah. And how do they handle this week? It's a week layoff.
Yeah. They had a 5-day break followed by a 6-day break.
Yeah. Now that's, the
worst
Fred got to
ever.
manage that.
Yeah. Worst timing.
Yeah. They're a hot
when
team.
You're playing this well.
Yeah. They're a hot team and you'd like to see that. It is a real conversation too. I think any coach would tell you that. I think Fred would tell you he'd rather it would have been like a midweek game this week.
Well, and right before that, they played 4 games in 2 weeks.
You're right too, Rob. The mindset thing is something to watch. They haven't had pressure on them.
No.
Now there's a little bit of pressure because of they're the favorite and because now you are talking about the postseason. Can't really afford to lose much at all, especially if you're going to go to the NCAA tournament. I can't even believe we're talking about that. But I do believe it's real. I think that I think that they'll win the last 3 of the regular season. And then, you got to go win 3 games probably. And I think you would agree, Robin, they're dangerous to any team in the league right now. Especially on a neutral floor.
Ultimate spoiler. Yeah. Right now. If
you don't want them right now.
No, it's because they are so unique in how you have to defend them. They have a 6'7", 215-pound point guard. They've got a center that brings the ball up and initiates the offense out of the high post. They've got one of the most undefendable shooters in the league right now in Keisei Tominaga. And so, you just go down the board, they're just a hard scout. And if they're with the effort that they play, that's what really separates it. They have all these pieces, but the collective effort in which they play makes them so difficult.
Now, Robin, you're a voter for the All Big Ten teams, yes. Right? What is your read on Tominaga? If this continues
Tominaga
in these final 3 games, what is your read on? Can he slide into a third team? I get it. The first team is
he's not first
untouchable, but the second team, third team, is he gonna win, or is he just not popular enough amongst the league?
No, he is popular enough. That's the difference. Before, there's guys that have been deserving. From a statistic standpoint, Alonzo Verge should have been an All Big Ten player last year,
but he just didn't have the.
Was he an honorable mention?
No, not even honorable mention. And so, but he led the league in assists. Or anyway. So that's an example of a guy that didn't have that. And so now every opposing coach knows who Keisei Tominaga is. When he gets the ball and shoots it, you have assistant coaches from the other team yelling "shooter" at the top of their lungs because he has their full attention. So from the coach's vote, there's that. Then you have the media vote, where I follow a bunch of beat writers from around the league, and the unanimous love that he gets from opposing writers is something I haven't seen a Nebraska player get maybe ever. At least as far as I've been doing this. He's so fun to watch that you have people from other teams rooting for him and tuning into Nebraska games to watch Keisei play. And so that's half the battle right there, is getting on the radar and being taken seriously. And you add that with the production. He's going to finish as one of the top scorers, at least over this back end of the season, in the entire conference. And so you pair the popularity with the production. I think he's going to have a chance. I'm not saying he will. He could slide in at third team, but he's an honorable mention.
Second team's going to be hard, right?
Yeah. I mean,
but third team would be a heck of a coup.
Yeah, I mean, there's like pros in the second team. So like, it's that isn't a knock on him, but I think third team is certainly attainable. And who knows? What if they make a run in Chicago? And then maybe that changes the conversation even more.
Yeah, he's dangerous in part because Derek Walker.
That two-man game is fantastic.
Oh, it is. Derek Walker's now he's a fascinating player to me. I asked you this on my radio show, Robin. I haven't seen a player at Nebraska like Walker. I don't think in my lifetime. I mean, they've had undersized centers like Andre Smith. Now it's going back to the late 70s, early 80s. But Andre didn't face up, square up with this man going to the basket. And he wasn't, I mean, Andre could use his left or right. But, man, Derek Walker, his ability to go left or right is incredible. And he shoots it with his left, his offhand.
Mm-hmm.
He's really hard to guard. I mean,
from a versatility standpoint, offensively, maybe the closest comp, and this is probably isn't even fair to Derek, would be like Ryan Anderson. Remember when Doc's mini-me lineup that they had when he was playing the 5, the 6'6" guy playing the 5.
I don't think he was 6'6".
I mean, so like that,
6'4".
Yeah, 6'4", 6'5". So anyway, either way, he was your 5, and so like
bizarre.
That is kind of what we're talking about here. Where I mean, there hasn't been a player now. Derek, his jump shot is almost non-existent, but his ability to get to the rim, finish at the rim, and facilitate for others. I mean,
good passer.
It's few and far between at Nebraska for guys playing the 5 position to do everything that. I remember talking about. He's like their number 1 press break guy. Like so when teams pressure them, he's the safety valve that they get it to and get it across half court. So, I mean, he does so much for this team, and a big part of Keisei Tominaga's surge is because of Derek Walker.
Hey, and Sam Hoiberg, I know we got to mention him too.
Absolutely.
Because
thank you, Sean.
That's been maybe
first man off the bench against Maryland.
That maybe has been as big of a surprise, if not bigger. I mean, this is a guy that redshirted last year, right, Robin?
Yep.
And was not even in the conversation to see the court before the injuries.
No, and I'd heard going into the year. I remember going to that Colorado game. They had a scrimmage right before that, the exhibition at Colorado this season. They had a scrimmage right before that, and apparently he scored like 26 points and hit a bunch of threes. And so, like,
really,
like that kind of like caught guys' attention.
Yeah, sure.
Like, maybe there's a little something here, but he's still a 6 foot, 180-pound walk on. Like those guys aren't supposed to come in and do what he's been doing, not just playing, but making critical game-winning plays on both ends of the floor. You remember when that offense was going through that drought against Maryland when they were down 8 in the second half? They couldn't do anything. Sam Hoiberg stepped up and hit a 3.
Big 3.
And then you go down to the steal at the end.
Oh, yeah.
And then the very last possession of regulation when he's matched up against Jameer Young, who is probably a first-team all-league guard. And one-on-one, everybody knew who was getting the ball, and Sam Hoiberg was locked in on him. It was funny. The new nickname for him now, courtesy of Trey McGowan's, is Seatbelt Sam, because when he's on you, you're sitting down.
He's good. I mean, he's legit. And he probably had to convince a lot of the fan base that he's not just a cute little story.
Yeah.
He's
it's
more
beyond that. That Maryland game changed everything. For him.
He's playing against a team that's it's a tall, athletic team.
Yeah.
And he's just fine.
And he fought it.
Yeah, he's fine. He had 9.6 rebounds and 2 steals in that game. He was gigantic. And I thought he had proved himself capable before that. He's legit. He can shoot. I mean, the first go round at Maryland,
he showed it.
Yeah, he showed early in that game.
He showed it all in offseason. So last year he was on the scout team, obviously during his redshirt year, and he was always the shooter. So he was always simulating the other team's best shooter. So basically he had ultimate green light all year working against Nebraska starters, and he caught a lot of attention then.
He's a great shooter.
And I made this comment to so Trey and Bryce were back in town for their camp on Friday, and I said, if Sam Hoiberg was 6'4", probably a 4-star recruit.
Yeah. And
Trey was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're talking about a 4- and 5-star recruit themselves.
My favorite line was Coach Hoiberg said, he goes, my fear was that he was going to try to dunk that last layup.
Did he say that?
Said, what were you thinking? Somebody asked him, what were you thinking when Sam had the breakaway? He goes, my fear was he's going to try to dunk it.
Just go up and tomahawk it.
He missed the dunk.
Oh, that would have been bad.
But no, it was the perfect, just fundamentally sound layup.
Yeah, you laid it in.
That would have been just so Nebraska ball. Like he goes up from like this Air bricks the dunk.
But you know what he did? He made the play. He finished the play,
Yep.
and they won the game.
Yeah, he jumped that inbound.
All right, when we come back, we'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Time to bring in Abby Barmore as we take your questions in the mailbag. Abby, what is leading us off this week?
All right, first one. What makes Dylan Raiola so good, and why is he the number one player in the 2024 class?
I mean, just arm talent, strength, poise. I watched his workout when he got his offer from Nebraska. It was Scott Frost, Mario Verduzco, Coach Lubick back then leading that workout. And we didn't know he was a 5-star yet. And I turned to Greg Peterson. I go, Greg, this is as impressive of a young quarterback as I've ever seen doing this job. Like, you could just see the way the ball flies out of his arm and just the things that he does. And for him to get the offers that he did before he even played varsity football, that's what Georgia saw. That's what Texas saw. That's what all these programs saw.
I wonder how much of the intangibles figure into it too. He's from a family that's very enthusiastic about football. His dad played 13 seasons in the NFL. They love football. Okay. They love it in that family. And he's obviously very intelligent, and his dad is very intent on him being, they're going to have a private coach and all that. It's all there for him. And here's the thing, intangibles. I met Dylan just for the first time on the Oklahoma game when Nebraska played at Oklahoma. And he's a very disarming kid. Like, he's precocious in that way. He's just a super nice, some kids don't look you in the eye anymore. He looks you right in the eye, shakes your hand. I just think a lot of it, a lot of it's intangible. Of course, you have this tangible package of a 6'4" guy with a gun, so it's pretty much all there. That's the number one player in the country.
Do you see Nebraska keeping 2 kickers on scholarship, or does Timmy Bleekrode hit the portal?
That's a great question. They have time to figure that out. But the thing is, Tristan Albano, the freshman, is not here yet. So,
he won't be here for spring ball.
It's not like they can.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to go 1 year, probably with 2, if I had to guess. But if Albano wins that job, I can't imagine Bleekrode's here for 2 more years, this year, next year.
You think they would do a deal where, like, if that's the case, would they just work Albano, like maybe start him out as like the kickoff specialist, like Frankie was?
But if he's better,
that's what I'm saying. Like, maybe, and then eventually, if there's issues with Bleekrode or anything like that,
they're gonna let him battle it out. That's the thing. And
but if they have 2 kickers, do you think Albano will play?
No, I think you play the best guy, and they played Frankie because he had the stronger leg.
Right.
Albano has that kind of leg strength and accuracy both. Frankie didn't have the accuracy. Albano's as good as you're going to ever see coming out of the high school ranks.
Yeah, but you don't want to get in the business of handing guys jobs.
No, but what he did in the state championship game off the ground, not a tee box, big difference. Right. And so that will play itself out. But the good thing for Timmy Bleekrode, regardless, he's got his degree. He's a graduate. He's in graduate school. He got his degree at Furman already. So regardless, he's got that side of life figured out. And I'm sure kind of it's a matter of what but I would expect him to be here for at least 1 more year.
What game are you most excited for this upcoming football season?
Prime.
It's hard not to say Colorado at this point.
The buildup on Colorado, it's going to
Prime.
Is that going to be a Fox game? Is that going to be I guess it can't be NBC because it's a Pac-12 game. So will Fox put Prime in prime time? I can't imagine that's a big noon kickoff out there, which would be 10 a.m. in Boulder.
Yeah. How about, Sean, you retweeted this just to add to this discussion that Colorado has sold 30,000 tickets to their spring.
They're going to sell that thing.
They didn't even used to sell tickets.
Right. I think this is the first time.
Yeah.
They've sold tickets, and they've sold 30,000 so far. Yeah. That's got to be a packed stadium. We know that, right? That stadium's got to be jam-packed. Sean, come on. That's got to be a night game. Right?
If the Pac-12 somehow gets saved, like Prime is like a big part of it. Like if he can get their profile raised up a little bit more too. I don't know if it's going to happen though. I think there's too many other things going on with the Pac-12 and the TV deal. You saw the Pac-12 announce their new TV partner might be Apple TV.
Oh God. Sorry, Apple TV.
There goes that sponsorship.
I wonder if I don't know if I want to say brilliant hire by Colorado yet. I think you can't do that before they play a game.
It's accomplishing everything they'd hoped so far.
Yeah,
it's amazing nobody else thought to hire Prime.
Well, Sean, how do you know? Come on,
but
I think he was in the Auburn mix a little bit, right?
But yeah, Auburn's tried to go conventional on like all the hires they do. Who did Auburn even hire?
Don't do this to me, Sean. They hired the guy from Liberty.
Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze.
I mean,
they just kind of familiar with Hugh Freeze.
Auburn just kind of stays on brand with their hire. Like it hasn't really consistently worked out for them. Like this would have been interesting.
I agree.
Like,
I agree with you.
Can you imagine the entertainment of Saban and Prime in the same state?
Here's the thing about Prime, though. What coaches will tell you now. See, we do this thing where we say he's not conventional. I mean, what was his record at Jackson State, Sean? 29-6, 29-7. What you hear coaches say about him all the time is tough team, tough between the lines. You can talk about Prime and all the flash, but between the lines, players hit.
Conventional, though, in the sense that he's got cameras on him at all. I mean, like that kind of, like that's what I mean. Like he's like a Kardashian football coach.
Where his brand is bigger than the programs.
Okay, that's a good point.
That's a heck of
Colorado's a place where they're okay with that.
Yeah.
Because the Colorado brand had disappeared to nothing.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? That doesn't play well everywhere.
No.
Where the coach.
That's why when people are rooming him to Nebraska, it's like, no, there's no way. Can you imagine him doing all that stuff here and like
that ticket will be the most expensive Nebraska ticket we've seen probably since the Notre Dame game in South Bend.
Yeah, I think we're hearing 400, 500 already.
But I mean, seriously, that's the opening game for Prime in Boulder. They play at TCU, then Nebraska.
Okay, wow.
So that's his first game. It's going to be a huge staged game. The rating's going to be gigantic. Nebraska fans will travel. That will be arguably the most expensive Nebraska ticket we've seen in 20 years.
We're talking about this as being more exciting to us than the Michigan game?
Or Minnesota, Matt Rule debut on the road against a Big Ten opponent on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
There's a lot of a West Division foe. Like there's a ton at stake.
Matt Rule, the first two games, like he's going to be nationally staged for two straight games.
Interesting.
I mean, hey,
isn't that interesting?
Hey guys, but Nebraska's dead. The brand's nothing.
Oh yeah.
They're going to get 5 million viewers for 2 straight weeks to watch them.
They are. You're right.
It's going to be interesting.
Now it's interesting from the standpoint. There's a little pressure there.
A lot of pressure
on Rule.
What if they
lay
eggs
don't
in
say
both
that.
those games?
Yeah, don't say that. You know what? One thing that helps you, I'm going to say it. You got a returning starter at quarterback. You got stability at that position.
You got two guys
Casey,
you got
Casey
two
Thompson.
returning starters. You got Georgia Tech's returning starter and Nebraska's returning starter.
I love it.
All right,
Casey Thompson.
We got time for about 2 more, Abby Barmore.
Okay. What specifically will Donovan Raiola be changing about the way Nebraska trains his offensive linemen?
Ooh, hard to say that. Hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know how to answer that.
I think the offensive style they run, I felt like Whipple didn't run a system that complemented them very well.
That's a good way to put it.
Like when you run straight handoff game, it's pretty easy to defend that and go against that.
Oh, 100%, Sean.
When you traditionally drop the quarterback back,
right,
and it's obvious passing situations, it's hard on the O-line. I think they've got to create a system that keeps you off balance.
And coaching to a established identity, I think, is a big part too.
Great
where
point.
Your game plan doesn't fluctuate from air it out, chuck it down deep, and or just like dink and dunk down the field. Like I think that was a big part of the offensive line struggles. Was they didn't know what offense they were going to do.
Oh, there's no question.
And so how do you block to that? So I think having some sort of consistency in what is expected of them will go a long way into improving them.
In-house, Sean, come on, you wrote about it. You've written about it. In-house, it wasn't good with Donovan and Whipple, I don't think.
And Whipple didn't help him. Like,
no,
he hung him out to dry.
No, right.
Like Oklahoma game. Think about what they did in that Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
They went like 13 straight possessions without points.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, you heard the stories. It just wasn't a very comfortable situation.
No. I mean, they were really fortunate the way they played on offense to beat Rutgers, to beat Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana, they had some plays in that game.
No, they had some plays in that game.
But some of their offensive play wasn't great at time. I mean, the time of possession wasn't there, as we know. I think just simply getting a running quarterback game back into the system,
I think that could help.
It's going to help a lot of things around it.
And you're going to get AJ Allen back too.
All right, final question.
Sunday was Legends weekend for Nebraska basketball, and there was a lot of greats there. What are some of your favorite memories from those players and those great teams?
Hoppin was a great memory for me. Dave Hoppin is the all-time leading scorer. And he was a very fundamentally sound big man. Blew out his knee. I've been a higher draft pick. He still got drafted. He played in an era where, when you talk about inside-outside games, they have Brian Carr and Hoppin. And that was almost now I was going to say it's about as good as it gets at Nebraska. Then along came Tyronn Lue and Vincent Hamilton. So when I think of inside-outside games at Nebraska, hard to beat those two. Tominaga Walker, I'm not going to say belongs in that category, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's better than we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
For me, I just like watching. It wasn't just that weekend, but I think over the last few months, your guy Eric Strickland coming back.
Yeah,
I mean, he was all over that alumni. He was like basically like the player rep leading all that stuff. He was at all the events. He was on the court, and just him being around, he hasn't been in Nebraska for a long time. I mean, he was living down in Texas and was just kind of in and out, but he's been around the program a lot. He goes over there a lot and talks with the players. And, of all the former players that have done it at the collegiate level, done it at the NBA level, he's right at the top as far as guys that
10-year NBA
players can relate to. And so I think that was a perfect example of just kind of his re-involvement with the program. That was really fun for me to see.
Yeah. Hey, here's the thing, Sean. I had one thing about Eric. You're around him. I'm around him a lot because we work at the same radio station. He's just a genuinely nice guy.
Oh yeah.
Like there's just nothing. He's the most unassuming 10-year NBA player I can imagine.
His half court shot, Robin. So they brought him out. It was brutal. Like
I saw it.
I mean,
it was a trip to Chicago on the line. Who the hell? He probably tried to miss. I mean, who wants to go to Chicago right now?
Well,
but if it was the Bahamas, I bet he would have made one.
But you're like one of the most prominent Husker legends, and you grazed rim on one of
so I turned to my wife. I go, he's going to make one of these. Like, this is an NBA guy. He's going to easily have a shot. He didn't even come close.
There was no incentive.
I remember back in the day.
A trip to Chicago was on the line.
Back in the day, there was a chance where you could have like a former player or like a special guest shoot it, and the kids let Matt Davison shoot it for him. Davison just steps up there and just swishes it.
No way.
Wins the kid like a whole bunch of money.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
From half court?
From half court.
Davison did?
Yeah, he was doing radio back then.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
He just
so he took his suit off?
Headset off, swishes a 3. There you go, kid.
That's so Davis.
Matt's freaky.
That's so Davis.
My memory was Keith Mooney, seeing him down there. First of all, I didn't realize how little he was, but I go back
little guy,
to the 90. He was on the 90-91 team, right?
Yeah, I think so. Robin would know that better than I would.
That overtime game in Kemper when they beat Oklahoma 117-113, and all the guys fouled out of the game, and Chubbuck was a freshman, Pikowski was a freshman, and Chubbuck, they still show that clip of him sprinting down the floor and blocking that shot. And then Mooney hit a shot to send it to overtime. A 3 at the top of the key.
Yep. Yeah, 3-pointer with 6 seconds left in the game. Tied it at 100.
Good job, Sean.
The Huskers eventually won in OT.
I just remember my dad and I were watching that and jumping around the living room. Because I mean, it was to this day, I would love to watch that film of that game because that was exciting. And Pikowski was just a young pup.
Yep.
And he had to come in because all these guys fouled out. And he was hitting shots. And they ended up getting beat that year in the finals to Missouri, 90-82.
Okay.
But they were 26-6 going into that championship game against Missouri.
Man.
They were a 3 seed, Sipple.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that vividly. I remember that.
Going into the tournament that year.
And they lost the first round.
Where was Pikowski? Was he down? I didn't see him down there, Rob.
No, he wasn't down there. He's come back a couple times, but
I mean, he lives in Omaha.
Yeah.
He might have been doing something else.
He's a busy guy.
He's probably out in Arizona or Phoenix but all right, yeah, that was a great Legends weekend. When we come back, we'll close the show. Some new rule changes potentially coming in college football. We'll give our thoughts on that next. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. I want to close on to some national discussion, some rule changes coming into college football, at least proposed rule changes. And really the crust of it, guys, is to shorten the game. They want to eliminate icing the kicker where you take all 3 timeouts or 2 timeouts in a row.
I'll be eliminated.
No longer extending a first or third quarter for untimed downs.
I'll be eliminated.
That's got. But the big one is the clock. Will they continue to run it after our first down? I think that's
incomplete. No, the ones,
and then the incomplete pass. But I think you're going to see in college football they stop the clock on first downs. I think that's going to go away. I think they're going to run the clock on first downs. Now that's an easy one, but to me the controversial one is on an incomplete pass when the ball gets spotted. Run the clock. I think you would cut out so many plays of a game, almost too many in my opinion.
Silly.
That's like 20 plays a game.
Why do you say that, Rob?
I don't understand. Like, why are you changing the entire format of the game? Like, college football is a pretty darn good product. Why are we ruining it so we can fit more commercials in? That bothers me a lot. So the other ones, like the first two, no brainers. Like the consecutive timeouts, like that stuff.
Untimed downs.
Yeah, untimed downs. After the first down, I don't know. I always thought that's kind of what made college football unique from the NFL was that you could get a first down and have time to get up and spike it. Like it was a different game management aspect, which personally I kind of liked. It's not going to ruin the sport for me if they keep it, but the last one, that running clock after an incomplete pass, what is that?
Here's the thing. What I've been told is don't even worry about it. It'll never happen.
It better not.
Yeah.
That would change. I mean, then at that point, records and history books could never, records would never break.
So, okay, to clarify, it's after the ball's spotted. I want to make sure that's clear. It's not like the clock just keeps running. The clock stops, and then once the ball's spotted and they're lined up, then the clock runs. So basically, the stoppage after a first down now.
Defensive coaches would like it.
You'd have to change the record books because statistics would never be the same because you would automatically have less plays per game by far every year.
Oh yeah. I mean, right now that's what, if you look at college and pro, it's so much different. Colleges, you'll see 80 to 90 plays per team in a college game. It's about 55, 60 in the NFL. Now it would really put an impetus on efficiency on offense.
Which favors the Big Ten.
Yeah, probably.
The way they like to play.
Yeah.
A huddle style.
It was sort of interesting. I thought of Frost when I was reading this stuff because Frost would always talk about how in the American Athletic Conference, they were running 90 plays a game. And he literally said, and I didn't think it was a good look for him, but he said, you know what? We could run some plays that weren't very good, but it didn't matter because we're going to run
a sheer volume. We're going to get more good ones.
In the Big Ten, it'll work.
But in the Big Ten, he said in the Big Ten, you got to be really efficient. Yeah. So that's my takeaway. But my biggest takeaway is don't even worry about the incomplete pass part. It ain't going to happen. It won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's other ways that you can reduce the time of games, like maybe condensing the replay review, that sort of thing. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of dead time in games that you could find a way to tighten up rather than take actual game time off the clock.
The average time of game last season in college football was 3 hours and 21 minutes,
which is just fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay. Yeah, I guess.
Are people complaining about that?
Probably
the 4 hour games I can see, but
it gets to be, that's average. Now keep in mind that what I just said was average. So there are games that are running 345 and we've sat up there and said, man, this is a long game. 345.
Injury timeouts really are what extend games though.
That's true.
What was there was a game where it took a while. I mean, there were a couple, where you're waiting for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought the Michigan State game last year, or when Adrian got hurt, that was one where there seemed like there's a lot of that. But I don't know. 321 doesn't bother me too much, but when it gets to be over 340, it seems like a little
and honestly
ridiculous.
The TV networks want shorter games.
I think so.
Because then if they can get a 3 hour game, that's more content they can put on after the game to get more commercials in.
Right. And they don't like the overlap either. And coaches hate the overlap when, okay, guys, you're pushed back because the other game ran long. Coaches don't ever want to hear that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. And then I did want to hit on the Pac-12 situation.
What is the
Pac-12? It's worth
Pac-12?
noting right now. Ohio State canceled the series with Washington. And that's coming up in the mid-20s, 25 and 26. They're supposed to play the home and home series. And there's some theory out there, what does Ohio State know about maybe what's going to happen? Because Ohio State's not one, and Rick Neuheisel had this take, because they're not one to duck anybody. They're not going to duck Washington. And the thoughts they might play USC or UCLA already that year. Well, what if Washington's in the Big Ten?
Gene Smith would maybe be privy to such information as the next commissioner.
I mean,
but I don't know if he'll be the next.
I would like Oregon and Washington to be in the Big Ten. I think it would balance things out better. And then Stanford, Cal, Notre Dame, figure that one out, whatever comes out of that group. But USC and UCLA need more West teams. Oregon and Washington are the two logical teams to bring in.
Yeah, I can't really bite back on that. I like the Big Ten with USC and UCLA. In my ideal world, it'd just stay there. UCLA, UCA joining, keep it right there. But I think it's inevitable that's going to get.
Well, then you can create a pod with Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA.
I agree.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And we've been to those venues, and they would be just fine for Big Ten.
Oh yeah, that Oregon venue. Now Oregon venue's small.
Washington's sweet.
Yeah, Washington's a huge venue, a big venue. Oregon's small though. That's one thing. It's loud, and it's nice. It's gorgeous, but it's small.
Eugene was not what I thought it was going to be.
Why is that?
I mean, it just was different. Like
how so, Sean?
Careful.
What
are you a little freer than I was expecting it to be.
I liked it. I mean, it was cool.
You can't pump your own gas there, though.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool.
Okay, really? I don't remember that.
They didn't have Uber.
Yeah,
it's like a city.
They might have it now, but no Uber or Lyft. You had to use the cabs. It was like totally. You obviously couldn't pump your own gas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just things about it.
I usually judge those trips by what the buffet line's like at the game, and it was really good as well as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
The press box was phenomenal.
The breweries before the game were fantastic.
Oh yeah, no,
the Friday before the game. Let me clarify. Friday before the game. Hey, Outson Stadium is 54,000.
54, small.
It's not that small.
What's pretty small, Rob?
We ate at Party
compared to
Eugene.
Michigan and
Remember
Ohio
place, Robin? Party Eugene Friday night.
Rob, 54 small.
Well, okay.
54 is small by any Big Ten.
Purdue's that big.
No, Purdue's bigger.
You know what's not small?
Sean.
You know what's not small?
Your head.
Hey, Ross-Ade Stadium is 57,000.
Oh, it is.
But aren't they expanding like that end zone?
I thought Ross-Ade was bigger than that.
57,236.
And Minnesota Stadium is about 55.
No, they're like 70.
Minnesota, the Gophers.
Yes. Oh, never mind. That was U.S. Bank. Hold on.
Yeah, go to
to be more specific. All right, so they are.
What's Minnesota? 50, small.
That makes more sense.
Yeah,
Oregon can get bigger though.
Sure, and I'm not complaining.
I mean,
it was a beautiful scene. I thought it was a beautiful scene out there, and that place is loud. Ooh, it was loud. Now it's 48 to 14.
So keep your eyes Oregon and Washington.
Okay,
that's something to watch. Ohio State canceling that series in the mid-20s out of nowhere this past week. So what do they know?
Interesting.
All right.
Do you think this is imminent?
I do.
Do you?
Well, this Apple TV thing for the Pac-12, not good.
That's not sustainable.
Like that is not. I mean, the Major League Baseball Friday night like games on Apple TV. I mean, even that.
Like you have to like go out of your way to find those. So can you imagine at 10 o'clock at night or whatever watching Arizona State, Arizona?
No. You know what? I can't. I can't imagine it.
So we're going to probably have some games in the Big Ten on the Peacock.
Yeah.
On the NBC. Like they're going to have some streaming only Peacock games or CBS stream.
I think Nebraska would avoid most of those.
But like in the Big 12, they're doing streaming only games right now. Like Kansas State basketball, a huge game this year. It was ESPN Plus only.
God.
Yeah, the Nebraska-Kansas State game was a Big 12 game, and that was streamed on their little
ESPN Plus.
Yeah, ESPN Plus, and then the Big 12 network or whatever you want to call it.
But all right, well, lots to keep up on. Nebraska basketball, 2:30. Nebraska baseball on the road against South Alabama. We'll keep you up to date with all that coverage on HuskerOnline.com. If you're not a subscriber to the podcast, check us out on our podcast channels, anywhere you can find podcasts. Also, find us on YouTube. We put all the shows out on YouTube as well. So we got lots of ways that you can follow and keep up. And then check us out at HuskerOnline.com. $30 right now gets you access until August 31st.